So, all right. So now I won't go into the long dissertation about Sharon. All I know is that Sharon, almost ever since we began, no, not ever since we began, it was a little bit later than that, where she began to decide to work with underprivileged children as well. However, she does it in an entirely different way. And she is going to be able to tell you about the future that she sees and how you can be part of it. Go ahead, Sharon.
Thank you, Jackie. Um, I have to tell you that most people go around their communities, whether it's Poland or Holland or Nigeria. I've been to Ghana, Liberia, Togo, and the kids are kids no matter where they are. And, they just want to be kids at that point. They want to have a future that they can look forward to that is going to be something rewarding for them. And could you mute Dennis for me,
Yeah, I'm
please?
trying to get to him.
He's
Hang on.
walking.
Go ahead. Yeah.
We're on a
Yeah.
treadmill,
We don't need to.
which where I should be.
Okay.
Thank you. So I look at kids from all over the world, and I've been fortunate enough that I've seen a lot of kids in different countries, and they're no different from one country to the next. So in the United States, we have 700,000 children living on the streets today without an adult to provide for them or protect them. Now, you would think that that might be in Ghana or in Liberia. But no, it's here in the United States. There are no programs for these kids. About half of them come from foster care. So our children at 15 years old are kicked out of foster care. There are no programs for them to engage in because they don't have an address. They can't qualify for food stamps because they don't have a residence. They can't gain programs that might be a little lenient on the age range, but they can't shower, so they can't really look presentable to apply for a job. And what employer would hire a 15-year-old that's homeless compared to somebody who's maybe 17, 18, who comes from a family where they know that they'll have some discipline to show up on time? So we have failed our children here in the United States. And it's not just the homeless kids. Our education system in the United States has plummeted. When I graduated high school back in 1968, 90% of all children graduated. Today it's 65%. When I graduated high school, the United States was third from the top of the industrialized nations. Today we're third to the bottom. Our math comprehension in our schools is almost worse than any other country, including most African countries. And people don't realize how much our children have been dumbed down. They don't know how to problem solve. They don't know how to find solutions. Elena mentioned the mental health issues. We have more children committing suicide in the United States today than any country in the world. And the most affluent communities have more children than communities that are more poor. So a rural community in Arkansas or Alabama, they might have maybe 2%, where a place where Jackie and I are very familiar, Danville, California, they have the highest suicide rate of all teenagers in the world. So the parents are both working. So we have absentee parents. These are latchkey kids. In the Bay Area, parents usually have to drive an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours to get to the job and then commute back. So from the time these kids are very young, they have no emotional engagement with their families. This creates a deficit in them that they don't know how to relate to other people. They're being raised by strangers or TV. Who knows what the input is, but it is not good. So the parents on the weekends are running around just doing all the chores it takes so they can go back to work the same job that they probably don't even like the next week. And so we have lost that community. When I grew up, it typically one parent worked, the other parent stayed home with the kids. We need to return to that model. We need to bring family back. So what I started doing back in 2000, my little brother who was adopted, he had come to live with me when he was 15 and I was only 24. And I have to tell you, it was a major challenge, but we got through it amazingly. And then in 1998, he ended up with colon cancer and he came back and we managed to get, instead of 6 months, we got 10 years from all the knowledge I had learned about natural health concepts. And Christmas 2000, we were sitting there and he says, you know, we have to do something to help the kids that are living on the streets who don't have a sister like you. And I was just blown away because my brother was a redneck cowboy. I never thought that he thought of anything other than country music, truly. So it was such a shock to me. And it really drove it home how many children living on the streets don't have someone to support them. And with the 700,000 children in the US today, 50% will end up in prison or dead by their 35th birthday. I mean, think about that. 50%. It's not their fault. You know, they were born to couples who didn't know how to support them. And maybe their parents didn't have anyone who knew how to support them. So it's this generational thing that gets passed down. And there's has to be education that's given to young girls in schools. So one of the schools, and I think Jackie and I were working together when I found this out, in Pleasanton, California, they have a nursery at the high school. Now, to me, that would encourage girls to say it's okay to get pregnant and have a baby because you have a free nursery here at the high school. I mean, that's just my interpretation, you know, but better than the kids dropping out. I mean, of the choices, I'll take the nursery at the high school. But the education needs to be, if you have sex, you're going to more than likely get pregnant one of the times. And then that changes your life forever. You know, so you might have a brilliant mind, but when you get pregnant at 15 years old, the likelihood of you going on to college and having the kind of life that you deserve is next to none. And so we have really failed our children. We have so many programs available to illegal immigrants here in the United States, but no programs for youth that are homeless. So I look to communities to be able to find people, like we have Rotary is international. They have great resources to be able to help all kinds of programs, Lions Club, Kiwanis clubs, and why not engage them in this whole education, the illiteracy issues, children living on the streets? Why not jointly everybody pitch, go out and speak at the Lions, Rotaries, and Kiwanis and say, you know, we have a bigger problem here everywhere we are in the world. You know, in Africa, they have Rotary clubs. You know, so why not engage people in groups, going to churches and saying, you know, this is a major problem that as a group we can address. If you drive around in your community, can you imagine how many buildings there are that are vacant? Right? All of these children are living on the streets. They don't know where they're going to sleep tonight. They don't know where they're going to get their next meal from. And 50% of the time, they're going to go into a grocery store and they're going to steal food. Right? If they get caught, they're put into juvenile hall. And they learn really bad habits when they're in juvenile hall. Now, we have in the U.S. 50% more children in juvenile hall than we have beds. So these kids are sleeping on the floors. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to get into the communities prior to the kids getting picked up. So at 15, our judges can emancipate the children, give them a choice. You can go to juvenile hall or you can come to Belize and finish your 3-year high school program. If I could reach ministers who have youth outreach programs and get to the kids prior to them getting picked up, then we could save them that whole experience of having to go through court, being arrested, having an arrest record. It's really something that is so simple when you think about it. Did you ever think about how many restaurants throw away their food every night? What if, organizations could go around and volunteer to pick up the food and make it available for the kids. Like, did you know that Panera Bread bakes extra bread every day just to give it to the homeless people? I mean, how thoughtful of them to do that. You know, we have the resources, we just don't have the organization behind it. So once I have the school started in Belize, we're going to come back to the United States and we're going to be building live workspaces. We'll take the empty buildings, we'll take hotels that are closed, schools that have been shut down, and convert them from infant through 24-year-olds to be housed, educated, make sure that they have the proper nutrition and the job training. Because if someone doesn't step in, we know 1 in 3 will end up dead. So we have to be able to address these issues before that happens. Every child deserves to have a life. When I think about, so this is a little telling, and Jackie knows some of the story, but I was raised where we had one pair of shoes, one blouse, and one skirt for the entire school year. We had to walk down a dirt road about a half a mile to get to the school bus, and by the end of the spring, we had holes in the bottom of our shoes, and we used to take newspaper and then take black shoe polish and paint the bottom of our shoes and learn to walk flat so nobody could actually see that we had a hole in our shoe. Now, we had one electrical wire coming into the house through my parents' bedroom, and we could plug in 2 things at one time. Now, this was in 1956. So can you imagine from that upbringing to being in a position today where I can impact 2,000 children every single year for our high school in Belize? Our second campus is going to be in Australia for the Aboriginal children. So you remember when England went to Australia and they took all the kids away from the Aboriginal families and forced them into an education, and the kids couldn't go back to see their families until they were 18? Well, those are the people who have asked me to do the school in Australia. And then all of the Indigenous children in Canada. Now, I didn't realize what a major problem that is in Canada. We have so many homeless kids in Canada. So then, because I had gone to Ghana, and I really loved Ghana, I was asked to do a school there. And then a good friend that I met in the Bay Area is from Cameroon. So she said, would you do a school there? We have 20 countries. He's muted. That's funny. So we have 20 schools that we'll be building in 20 years. Isn't that funny? Because he actually is muted. So in 10 years' time, we will have impacted 1 million children around the world. Now, all of you know that the United States rescinded from England's control. Did you know that it only took 12 people sitting down and having dinner to start the revolution? Here we have today 18 people. What kind of revolution can we instigate? What are the things that you can do that by speaking to people you know, engaging more people, 2 become 4. They double in size. You maximize your effort, your belief, your enthusiasm. And you know, enthusiasm is so contagious. You know, so when you believe in something and you go out and you speak in your community about what this problem is with youth, the education that they're not getting. Did you know that Khan Academy started about 20 years ago because this young man's niece didn't understand chemistry, so he wrote a whole YouTube program. And it's available, and they do charge now, but there's also Next Gen. Khan Academy is in 450 schools in the U.S. The Next Gen education, they're multimedia. So the kids learn the topic, and they can't go any further until they answer all the questions for that subject. So whether it's math, history, science, it they have to be able to understand it to answer the question. So it's a much more in-depth education. Our education all around the world has not been revamped since 2010. 15 years we're working on education that was based 15 years ago on current knowledge. And they didn't alter all of the education, only certain areas. So think about what has changed in your life in the last 15 years. Our cell phones, our multimedia, our social media, all the things that have changed, but our schools have not embraced that in education. That's what we need to look at to be able to get kids more engaged in their education. Our schools have to provide current education for them. And I believe every school needs to engage in mental health. So we need to have teachers retrained to recognize when children become despondent or angry or frustrated or, and I was very fortunate. I grew up in a school. We had 45 kids in my senior class. That was the largest class ever to have graduated that school. When you have a class of 1,000 kids, you're lost in the shuffle. So if you have an issue, unless you're willing to speak about it, no one really knows. And those are the kids who get picked on, they get bullied. I don't understand why bullying is such a big deal in this country. Why kids are trained, like if they're bullied at home, they bully kids at school. We know this. It's just passed on. It's an offset. Kids who are treated at home as though they don't exist or that they're just used to do chores. They don't have that emotional connection to their family. And those are the kids who go out and do the bullying because they're trying to be empowered by taking advantage of another child who can't defend themselves. So this education needs to address the issues that are current today and have teachers more aware instead of the teachers being so concerned about passing students who don't have the skills to get a job, which is most often in the United States. We have about 35% of the kids who graduate high school are not literate enough to fill out a job application in the United States. So we need to look at things and be more proactive. So everywhere in the world, this is an issue. Where are we going in our future? What do we need to do to make sure that our children are not going to be left behind? Now, I have an amazing, simple way that you can participate in my school. It's called a Visitors Instructors Program, where you can come down to Belize and hang out with us, share your life experiences, your goals, the things that you've accomplished, the things that made you dream to be where you are today. Can you imagine if every child had 80 people a week saying, hey, I grew up in a house that we didn't even have electricity installed in our house, and look at me today, right? There's hope. And that is the one thing that inspires children is having hope for a better future.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon. You have
You're
given us a
welcome.
lot of insight and a lot of look at what is existing, a lot of it in the United States. So other than coming to Belize and sharing in some way, what would you suggest these people in their communities do? Would that be to see about larger organizations such as Rotary and Lions and Optimists and this type of a thing, and to see if they're willing to be able to contribute in some way? Would that be the second thing?
I would say that would be the initial thing. And I don't know if you know this, but Seroptimists pay people $100 to speak at their chapters.
Oh, really?
So the others are free, but you can actually make a little money and educate them. But yes, jump into your community and to see all the different areas. Stop and talk to a policeman or go to a firehouse and talk to the fireman. Say, here's a real problem. And, Toys for Tots wouldn't exist in this country without our firemen. So, they have done amazing things to help kids, but we miss those 15-year-olds. There's nothing out there for them. So I've left my contact information. I'm happy to have one-on-ones with people. I love getting to know other programs, and I will mention my entire school is funded by foreign currency. And if you're not aware of this, the global currency reset is about to happen. That means countries like, there's 11 countries, but countries like Iraq, Vietnam, Zimbabwe, their currency will revalue, and I am allowed through the U.S. Treasury to transfer notes from my name to any project that's humanitarian. It has to be humanitarian. So if you are interested in being able to have extra funding, I'm happy to talk with you about that. I have more than enough funding to do all of my 20 campuses and then some. So I want to help other people who have a dream to make this world a better place.
Okay, cool. Put a 2 in the chat, please. If you'd put a 2 in the chat if you're interested in talking with Sharon